They say every relationship has its secrets, but some secrets can shatter everything. What happens when loyalty is tested in ways you'd never expect? This is the story of a love betrayed in the most unthinkable way. Betrayal doesn't always happen in the ways we imagine. It doesn't always come in the form of lies or stolen moments with another person. It can come from crossing boundaries no one thought possible. Today, I'm sharing a story so shocking, so unimaginable, it'll make you question how well you truly know the people around you. This isn't just another tale of infidelity. It's a raw, real, and unsettling look into how one woman's choices changed everything. It all began with a picture-perfect marriage, or so it seemed. Lisa and her husband, James, had it all. A beautiful home in the countryside, successful careers, and the kind of love that made others envious. But as they say, the cracks in a relationship often hide just below the surface, invisible until the moment they shatter. James worked in finance, which meant long hours and frequent business trips. While Lisa had her own career, she often found herself alone in their sprawling property, seeking ways to fill the emptiness that crept in during those quiet nights. Then came the horse, a magnificent black stallion named Midnight, gifted by James as a surprise for Lisa's birthday. Midnight wasn't just a pet. He was a symbol of their love, or so James thought. What he didn't know was that this gift would become the catalyst for an act of betrayal that would haunt him forever. Loneliness turns to obsession. At first, Midnight was just a way for Lisa to pass the time. A beautiful, sleek black horse with an almost regal demeanor, Midnight had been a gift from her husband James to lift her spirits during his frequent business trips. Initially, it seemed like a harmless hobby. Lisa spent hours riding through the hills, grooming him and caring for him in ways that seemed almost obsessive. To others, it appeared as nothing more than a woman bonding with her horse. But as time passed, her attachment to Midnight began to deepen in ways no one could have predicted. Friends noticed Lisa's growing connection to the horse but dismissed it as harmless. "It's just a phase," they'd say. "She'll get bored soon." But there was something about the way Lisa spoke about Midnight, almost as if he were more than just an animal. She'd describe his gentle nature, his intelligence, the way he seemed to understand her moods. She spoke about him as if he were a companion, someone who could feel what she felt and was always there when she needed him. James, who spent much of his time away for work, also noticed the change. One evening when he was home for the weekend, he couldn't ignore it any longer. "Lisa, you talk about that horse more than me," James joked, attempting to lighten the mood. Lisa laughed it off, brushing it aside as if it were no big deal. But deep down, she knew the truth. Midnight was the one who truly understood her, and it wasn't just harmless affection. It was becoming something more, something darker. The first boundary crossed. One night, after James had left for another business trip, Lisa found herself standing in the stable, looking at Midnight. The silence of the night settled over her like a thick fog. The quiet was suffocating, and the loneliness in her heart was overwhelming. As she stood in front of Midnight, he nuzzled her gently, his dark eyes glimmering in the low light. There was something almost hypnotic about his presence. The gentle sway of his body, the soft sound of his breathing, it all felt so calming. For the first time in weeks, Lisa felt at peace. In that moment, the loneliness inside her heart seemed to vanish. She leaned her head against his neck and whispered softly, "You're the only one who understands me." The words came out before she even had time to think. What started as innocent affection quickly turned into something much more intense. Lisa began to find comfort in Midnight in ways she couldn't explain to herself, let alone anyone else. She She wasn't just caring for him, she was depending on him for emotional support in a way that started to blur the lines of what was healthy and what was obsessive. She was drawn to him more than she had ever expected. This is not just a story about infidelity, it's a story about loneliness, obsession, and the dangers of crossing boundaries that should never be crossed. It's a reminder that even the most seemingly harmless connections can evolve into something far more destructive. For more true and shocking stories like this, don't forget to subscribe and hit the notification bell. Or check out the next video that might change the way you see relationships forever. James confronted Lisa, his voice shaking with a mix of rage and heartbreak. "What the hell is wrong with you?" he yelled. Lisa didn't have an answer. She stood there, tears streaming down her face, unable to meet his gaze. The confrontation escalated, with James demanding answers Lisa couldn't provide. How could she explain something so twisted, so beyond the bounds of what anyone could consider normal? James packed his bags that night and left, unable to stay in a home now tainted with betrayal. Subscribe for more shocking, true stories that'll leave you speechless. Or check out the next video. You won't believe what happens next. Unimaginable betrayal. In the days that followed, James couldn't bring himself to confront Lisa. The image of what he had witnessed in the stable replayed in his mind over and over again. How had it come to this? How had his wife, the woman he loved and trusted, fallen so far into the depths of obsession? Lisa, for her part, was silent. She avoided him, never fully acknowledging the discovery. It was as if the event had never happened, as if nothing had changed. But James knew better. Everything had changed. The love and trust they once shared seemed to vanish in the blink of an eye. The connection they had built over years of marriage was shattered in an instant, and no amount of apologies could ever fix what had been broken. The aftermath. James eventually packed his bags and left, unable to stay in the house where their memories had been tainted by betrayal. Lisa remained, but she was never the same. She continued to care for Midnight, but the bond between them had shifted. What had once been an innocent love for an animal had now evolved into something far darker and unrecognizable. In the months that followed, Lisa would often be found in the stable, her presence almost haunting. Her once vibrant spirit had dimmed, replaced by a hollow shell of the woman she once was. Her obsession with Midnight had consumed her, and now, with no one left to share it with, she was alone in her madness. James, on the other hand, tried to move on, but the scar of what had happened never fully healed. The memory of that night haunted him, and every time he thought about what Lisa had done, he couldn't help but wonder, how could he have missed the signs? How had he not seen the warning signs that she was slipping away, lost in a world that no longer included him? The growing attachment. Weeks went by, and James started to notice something wasn't quite right. Lisa had become distant, almost eager to see him leave for his business trips. It wasn't like her at all. At first, he thought maybe she just needed some time to herself. But the more he watched her, the more he felt like there was something unspoken between them. He tried to address it on one of his weekends home. "Lisa, are you okay? You seem different lately, more distant." James asked, hoping to understand what was going on. Lisa would always deflect, brushing off his concerns with a tired smile. "I'm just busy, James. You know how it is," she'd say. But her excuses never seemed to add up, and James started to feel like she was pushing him away. Then one day, something happened that would shake James to his core. He returned home earlier than expected from a trip, hoping to surprise Lisa. He drove up the long, winding driveway to their house, only to notice something strange. The stable door was slightly ajar. Curious, he made his way toward the stable. What he saw when he walked inside would leave him scarred forever. The shocking discovery. Inside the stable, the sight before James was nothing short of horrifying. Lisa was standing there, her back to him, her arms wrapped around Midnight's neck. But it wasn't the fact that she was there that shocked him. It was the way she was touching the horse, the intimacy of the moment, the way she was holding onto him. And the look on her face was not one of a caretaker with her animal. It was a look of something far more dangerous: obsession. James stood frozen in place, unable to comprehend what he was witnessing. He couldn't make sense of it. His mind refused to accept what his eyes were seeing. He had always trusted Lisa, believed in their marriage. But this was like beyond anything he could have imagined. Lisa turned to him, her face pale, eyes wide with shock. "James," she whispered, but it was too late. The truth was out. "James?" His heart pounding in his chest took a step back. "What the hell is this, Lisa?" His voice was a mix of disbelief and fury. "What are you doing?" The betrayal wasn't with another man. It was with the very animal he had gifted her, the very animal he thought would bring her joy and companionship while he was away. Lisa's actions left James speechless. The pain of what he had seen cut deeper than anything he had ever imagined.